What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a look at patch 1.1 for Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, which is the game's first major patch. There have, of course, been several smaller patches aimed at fixing critical issues as well as just some annoyances, but this is the game's first big patch. And it looks like quite a bit of it was in response to player feedback directly. And I say that because not too long ago I released a video called 5 Small Improvements I'd Like to See, and then I did a follow-up based on the comments that video got. And between both of those videos, almost every single thing that I mentioned in those was addressed in this patch, which I thought was cool, and if you happen to have been one of the people who commented on those videos, there you go. Now, truth be told, you probably won't personally see most of the things that are in this patch just because a lot of it is bug fixes, it's class mechanic issues, it's slight tweaks, again, based on player feedback. For instance, the Death Snatcher's regeneration was actually replaced with fast healing, and you might know the Death Snatcher as Playful Darkness, because people in general pretty much unanimously were like, this fight is the worst. But seriously, it would be very difficult to quantify all of the changes that happened here, so we are going to stick to the highlights. For starters, performance and visuals have been improved just a ton across the board, and I actually played through a bit of Act 4 where personally my performance on a high-end rig was the worst, and I have to say it was pretty improved for me, a lot less issues there. And when it comes to visuals, I'm talking character models, lighting, all sorts of stuff they kind of moved around. Some characters had models replaced, some enemies who were using the wrong model actually got their model corrected. For instance, there was a Nalfasheen in Arilu's laboratory that had the entirely wrong appearance. They fixed that. There was a demon that was supposed to be a Glabrezu in Dresden during the siege that actually looked like a Calavacus that was changed to look like a Glabrezu now. So a lot of stuff like that. Tons of UI fixes. We'll go over those a little more in just a second. But probably another big thing that this patch will do for you is fix up a lot of the reactivity. Some NPCs, for instance, would just appear at the wrong place at the wrong time. We actually saw this during my live stream playthrough that I did for the competition that they held. But towards the end, especially in Threshold, we kept seeing characters that I had definitely killed or let die up to that point. So they fixed a lot of that kind of stuff happening, as well as some of the logic behind characters' conversations with you. And then last but not least, before we get into a bit more of a showcase here, this patch fixed basically every major bug that I was personally aware of. I mean, I'm sure there's probably more just because video games, but every major bug that I was personally aware of, this patch aimed to address, on top of all the small things I wanted to see. So, pretty awesome patch. This also fixed the last 2 bugged achievements, so you can actually obtain all the achievements now, provided you can, of course, actually obtain them. And this actually might surprise you, but the bulk of the changes for this patch were actually to the Crusade mode. They changed quite a few things there, which we're about to get into. But first things first, I did want to mention, they changed the inventory highlights a little bit, and they kind of did this across the board if you pay attention, but they slightly tweaked the colors on everything. So this is especially noticeable in the inventory. It's much easier to see if an item is magic or notable or, red because you can't use it. That is much more visible at a glance now. It looks like they kind of increased the saturation on the color palette they were already using in that regard. And the scrolls and things that your character has, if you are playing a character that can learn things from a scroll, those scrolls will now have a little quill in the bottom right that indicates that it is something that character can learn, which is super handy because having to right-click every single scroll to see if the character could learn it was incredibly annoying. Now let's move on to the Crusade stuff. So, UI, got a big update here. The units got more unique and varied little portraits for their UI representations. The actual Crusade board that shows all of your armies and the forts and everything got a bit of a visual overhaul. The forts look a lot different. You can actually tell by looking at the forts whether it's an outpost, a bastion, or a fortress, which are the levels of forts you can get. They also made an effort to make all of the areas that you hadn't explored or had explored much more visually apparent, so they stick out quite a bit more now. And basically, it just looks like they went through and kind of tried to make things as visible at a glance as possible and tried to add a lot more variation to the visuals to make them more pronounced and easy to read. Another big change to the Crusade was that when you actually start doing the building part of it in Act 3, Dresden will actually start with the main 3 buildings already built, which are the main stables, archery range, and the barracks. These are the 3 buildings that allow you to generate troops every week, and they are literally the first buildings you need to build. So rather than having to do that, which is an easy thing for people to miss, to be honest, if you're new to the game and you don't know why you're not generating troops, now Dresden just starts with those 3 buildings already built, as well as a couple of others to get you going, which I think honestly will just help everybody across the board. But there you go, guys. There is a video on patch 1.1. I'll try to link the actual patch notes down below because, again, it is just a massive list. Personally, I wouldn't say any particular change here was major, but they just did so many tiny little changes to affect gameplay. They fixed so many bugs. This is genuinely a major patch full of just tiny things that they tweaked to make the game feel a lot better. So there you go, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.